You know that feeling when you open your bank app and you don't immediately want to close it? When you buy groceries without doing math in your head. No counting, no stress, no quiet panic. Just relief. Yeah, and most people think that feeling only comes when you're rich. Like you need 6 figures or $1 million in the bank. But that's the lie. There's actually a much smaller number that flips this switch completely. And once you cross it, money stops feeling tight all the time. This isn't about luxury. It's about breathing room. And the number behind that feeling? It's $20,000. My name's Jack, and I'm not here to sell you a dream life or tell you how to get rich overnight. I just spend an unhealthy amount of time thinking about money, how people use it, how they stress about it, and why two people earning the same income can end up in completely different places financially. And if you're trying to understand money instead of guessing your way through it, hit subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is for. Over the years, one thing has become very clear to me. The people who build wealth aren't always the highest earners, and they're definitely not always the ones living the flashiest lives. In fact, a lot of people who look rich are quietly one paycheck away from panic. That's because wealth has been misunderstood. Wealth is not your salary. A high income feels good, but if it all goes out as fast as it comes in, you're still stuck. Wealth is not your lifestyle either. The car, the apartment, the trips, the stuff, those are signals, not security. Real wealth is much quieter than that. Wealth is options. It's control. It's the ability to say no without fear, to handle problems without spiraling, to make decisions based on what's best for you, not what your bank balance forces you into. And once you see wealth this way, a question naturally comes up. It's because wealth doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows in stages. And if you don't understand those stages, it always feels harder than it needs to be. Here's the part most people never get told. Money doesn't grow smoothly. It moves in jumps. And those jumps are separated by what I call financial thresholds. When something is standing still, getting it to move takes a lot of force. There's friction working against you, gravity pulling you back. Every small push feels exhausting, and the progress is barely visible. That's exactly how building wealth feels at the beginning. You save a little, you invest a little, and nothing seems to happen. Your account balance moves, but so slowly it almost feels pointless. You're doing all the right things, yet the results don't match the effort. And that's where frustration creeps in. Most people assume this means they're doing something wrong, or that wealth just isn't for people like them. But in reality, they're just stuck below the first major threshold. Before you cross it, every dollar has to fight gravity. Your savings are too small to generate meaningful returns. One unexpected expense can erase months of progress. It feels like you're constantly pushing uphill, using all your energy just to stay in place. That frustration is completely normal. It doesn't mean you lack discipline. It means you're still in the hardest part of the process. What almost no one explains is that once you push past certain points, the rules start to change. Momentum builds. Friction drops. The same effort suddenly produces better results. But here's the problem. Because progress is so slow at the start, most people give up too early. They stop saving. They stop investing. They decide it's not worth it. And that's the tragedy. Most people quit right before the game changes. This is where the conversation gets specific. There's one financial threshold that shows up again and again across incomes, careers, and lifestyles. It's not flashy. It doesn't sound impressive, but it quietly changes everything. I call it the $20,000 rule. And before you tune out thinking that number is random, let me be clear. It's not. For most people, $20,000 covers roughly 3 to 6 months of basic living expenses: rent, food, utilities, transportation. And that amount matters because it's usually the first time you're no longer operating in survival mode. This isn't money you invest aggressively. It's not money you show off, and it's definitely not money you plan to spend. It's a buffer. The $20,000 rule is simply the point where one problem doesn't instantly turn into 5 more. When your car breaks down, it's an inconvenience, not a crisis. When work gets stressful, you're not trapped by panic. When life happens, you can breathe. Now, a fair question here is this. Why $20,000 specifically? Why not $10,000? Or $50,000? What matters first is understanding what this number actually represents. $20,000 is the line where fear starts loosening its grip. It's where you stop making every decision just to survive. This is the dividing line between survival thinking and growth thinking. What actually changes at this point isn't just your bank balance, it's how your brain works. When you don't have savings, your mind stays in what psychologists call a scarcity state. Your attention narrows. You focus on immediate problems. Rent, bills, the next paycheck. Every financial decision feels urgent because, to your brain, it is. There's no room to think long-term when you're constantly putting out fires. Studies on financial well-being show that even small emergency savings significantly reduce stress and improve decision-making. Having a basic financial buffer lowers cognitive load, meaning your brain isn't burning energy worrying about survival. That mental space matters more than most people realize. When you cross into real financial breathing room, something shifts. You move out of scarcity and into what you could call abundance bandwidth. Not abundance in the luxury sense, but in mental capacity. You stop asking, "How do I get through this month?" and start asking, "What's the smartest move from here?" That shift shows up everywhere. At work, you're less desperate. You don't jump at the first offer just because you're scared. You're more willing to wait, negotiate, or walk away. With risk, you stop avoiding every opportunity out of fear. You can take calculated chances because one mistake won't ruin you. And in everyday decisions, you think more clearly. You plan better. You react less. This isn't about confidence or motivation. It's about biology and psychology. When basic security exists, your brain can finally do what it's good at. Thinking ahead, weighing options, choosing quality over urgency. So no, the money didn't change first. Your brain did. Now let's talk about the math, because this is where the $20,000 threshold really starts to make sense. Why does the second $20,000 arrive faster than the first? Let's keep this simple. Imagine you're saving and investing $1,000 a month. No extreme budgeting, no risky bets, just consistency. With modest market returns over time, getting to your first $20,000 might take around a year and a half. That stretch feels long because every dollar has to come from your effort alone. But once you hit that first $20,000, something changes. Now you're not just adding money. Your existing money is also working. Even a reasonable return means that your balance starts growing on its own, alongside your monthly contributions. You're doing the same work, saving the same amount, but the timeline begins to compress. The second $20,000 doesn't take as long. The third comes even faster. Not because you suddenly got smarter, not because you took on more risk, but because compounding finally has something to work with. This is why the early stage feels so discouraging. At the beginning, progress depends almost entirely on you. Later on, progress is shared between you and your investments. And the effort doesn't change. You still save. You still stay consistent. But the results start stacking faster than they used to. That's when momentum kicks in. This is the moment most people never reach, simply because they give up too soon. They assume it will always feel this slow. But it doesn't. At some point, your money starts pulling its own weight. Here's another shift that happens once you cross this point, and it's easy to miss. Before this, life feels like a constant string of emergencies. Something breaks, something goes wrong, something unexpected shows up, and suddenly your entire month is off track. A car repair isn't just annoying, it's stressful. A work problem isn't just frustrating, it's terrifying, because you can't afford to lose income. Every surprise feels dangerous. But once you have real financial breathing room, life stops looking like emergencies and starts looking like options. Your car needs repairs. It's inconvenient, but it doesn't derail everything. A new opportunity comes up at work. a course, a certification, a move. You can actually think it through instead of instantly saying no. You want to invest in a skill that could increase your income. Before, that felt irresponsible. Now, it's a calculated decision. This is where people say things like, money goes to money, and it sounds mysterious, almost unfair. But there's nothing mystical about it. Money creates options, and options create more chances to make smart decisions. When you're broke, you can't take advantage of good opportunities even when you see them. When you're stable, you can. That's the difference. But what should you protect this money from? Because once you reach this stage, the biggest risk isn't bad luck. It's treating this buffer like spending money instead of what it actually is. This isn't lifestyle money, it's option money. And options are what actually create wealth. One of the strangest things that happens once you have a financial foundation is this. You stop obsessing over small expenses. When money is tight, every purchase feels heavy. You debate the coffee. You stress over groceries. You replay tiny spending decisions in your head because every dollar feels like it could be the one that breaks you. That's not because those choices matter so much. It's because you don't have margin. But once you step out of survival mode, you start seeing the real picture. Most small expenses barely move the needle. Cutting a few dollars here and there can help, but it won't decide your financial future. The big decisions will. Where you live has a massive impact on your finances. Housing costs can shape how much you're able to save for decades. What you drive matters more than people want to admit. Transportation is one of the largest recurring expenses for most households. And the income path matters even more. The skills you build, the roles you pursue, and the leverage you create at work all compound over time. This is where opportunity cost becomes real. Every major choice doesn't just cost money today. It costs what that money could have become in the future. A slightly cheaper apartment, a reliable car instead of an expensive one, or investing in skills that raise your earning power can change your trajectory far more than skipping coffee ever will. That's why wealthy people don't stress about every small purchase. They protect themselves from big, repeating mistakes instead. This isn't about being cheap, it's about being intentional. Because real freedom doesn't come from perfect frugality. It comes from making fewer big mistakes. Here's where most people trip up. They hit $20,000 and feel like they've earned a reward. They've been disciplined, they've made sacrifices, they've resisted urges for months or even years, and suddenly, it feels justified to treat themselves. A new car, a fancy vacation, a shopping spree. It's understandable. Emotionally, it feels like victory. Mentally, it feels earned. But this is exactly where the danger lies. Because that $20,000 isn't a prize. It's not a license to spend freely. It's infrastructure. It's the foundation that allows everything else in your financial life to function smoothly. It's the buffer that protects you from emergencies, the leverage that creates opportunities, the margin that gives your brain space to think and plan. Spending it like income destroys what took so long to build. One moment of reward can wipe out months of effort, sometimes years, and yet it happens all the time. So here's the real question worth asking. Why do so many people hit $20,000 and end up right back at zero? It's not because they lack discipline. It's because they misunderstood the purpose of the money. They saw it as lifestyle instead of strategy. They treated the foundation like the interest. The smartest way to use this money: spend the interest, not the foundation. Let the buffer sit, let it grow, let it do its job. Because that foundation is what turns small amounts into options. Options are what lead to wealth. And the moment you treat it wisely, you've built something that can never be taken away by one purchase, one emergency, or one impulse. You won't become rich overnight. You won't solve every problem with this number. But your relationship with money will change. Your mindset will shift. And your ability to make real, strategic decisions will grow. $20,000 won't make you rich, but it will change how you think, how you choose, and what you're willing to walk away from. And that's where real wealth actually begins. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below, And make sure to check the $10,000 rule if you want to invest more time on your money.